Task Force on Land Supply submits its final report recommending partial development of Fanling Golf Course and other options. In Bangladesh, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina re-elected amid vote rigging claims. And in Russia, at least 4 dead in a building collapse after a suspected gas explosion.
Hello and a very good evening. The Task Force on Land Supply today put forward 8 options that will provide almost 3,000 hectares of land. They include developing brownfield sites and part of the Fanling Golf Course. But as Caleb Long reports, housing problems will not be solved in the near future.
Hong Kong's land shortfall should be much higher than the government's estimate of 1,200 hectares. That's what the Task Force on Land Supply concluded as it submitted its final report to the government today. After a 5-month consultation session, the task force put forward 8 land supply options which will yield 3,235 hectares of land, but don't expect the housing shortage to get better anytime soon.
There is actually no readily available options that can give us in total more than 800 hectares of land in order to meet the short to medium term shortfall.
Short to medium term options include developing brownfield sites, the most popular choice according to the public consultation. 2 other options are more controversial: developing private farmlands and part of the 170-hectare Fanling Golf Course. These 3 options are expected to yield around 300 hectares of land over the next 8 years. The task force also put forward 5 medium to long-term options. They include reclaiming land outside Victoria Harbour, the construction of the East Lantau Metropolis, developing underground spaces, building more new towns in the new territories, and developing the river trade terminal site in Tuen Mun. The task force sees no reason why the government would reject its advice, as the report represents a consensus of the community as a whole. Not everyone is fully satisfied with the report. Democratic Party lawmaker Andrew Wan wants a full development of the Fanling Golf Course.
32 hectares is only 1/5 of the whole golf course, and if we want to solve the whole problem of the Northern district, like traffic jam and also the old facilities problem, we should think about develop the whole area as a new development area.
DAB lawmaker Lau Kwok Fan also expressed concerns over the proposed options. As most of them involve New Territories lands, he's worried that the area may lack infrastructure to cope with the new developments. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Another report the chief executive received today concerns the city's franchised bus services. Justice Michael Lun and members of an independent review committee submitted the report to Carrie Lam. The committee spent 9 months reviewing local franchised buses' operations and compiling a report. What triggered this was a bus crash in Tai Po back in February. 19 people died in the accident. Given manslaughter charges have been laid against the driver involved, the government will see how best to publish the report after consulting the Department of Justice.
The Urban Renewal Authority announced today flats in its pilot housing project targeting first-time home buyers will be sold at 40% below market price. Kana Chu has more details.
This home is one of the 450 flats offered at E-Residence on Ma Tau Wai Road and Shen Tin Street in To Kwa Wan. A starter homes pilot project of the Urban Renewal Authority, or URA, these flats will be sold at 62% of market price. That's around $3.14 to $6.6 million per unit. Under the current policy, the flats will be subject to a resale restriction of 5 years. However, upon understanding consumers' reactions, the URA may consider adjusting the restriction period for future starter homes projects.
The target group of the starter home is the higher income group. If we set the restriction period too long, it may create inconvenience for the higher income group to change to a larger threat.
Interested buyers must meet the following criteria. Applicants must be 18 years old or above and have resided in Hong Kong for at least 7 years. They must have never owned a local property and declare any overseas ownerships. They must also have never been a housing subsidy beneficiary. For singleton applicants, their monthly salaries must not exceed $37,050. They should also possess no more than $1.28 million in total assets. These applicants can only purchase studio or one-room flats. Those applying as a family must prove they live together. They will only be eligible if they earn no more than $74,100 a month. Total assets are capped at $2.55 million. Applications will be accepted starting on Thursday until January 23rd. The URA is expected to draw lots in March to determine the sequence for flat selection. Successful applicants can then pick their flats in June and move in around mid-2020. Kena Chu, TVB News.
A company linked to local carrier Hong Kong Airlines faces a claim of more than $800 million. The claim was filed in the High Court last Friday by HNA Group Hong Kong Investment Company Limited. It's seeking $850 million in relation to a promissory note issued 8 years ago and compensation for violating the terms of that agreement. That's the latest problem linked to Hong Kong Airlines, which has seen 6 directors leave in the last half year. Officials in Bangladesh say the ruling party has handily won a general election, ushering in a third straight term for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. But the opposition alliance claims the election was rigged and are asking for a new vote. Peter Koveos has details.
Bangladesh's election commission announced that Sheikh Hasina's Awami League won more than 280 of 300 seats in the country's parliament. The Prime Minister's victorious party highlighted the country's economic growth during the campaign. That influenced some voters. This person says they're happy with the result and want Bangladesh to continue to develop. The opposition alliance rejected the results.
We call upon the Election Commission to cancel and declare void this election, which is a farcical election, and do so immediately. We now demand that a fresh election be held under a neutral caretaker, under a neutral, non-party neutral government as within the shortest possible time, as early as possible.
The campaign preceding the vote was dogged by allegations of arrests and jailing of thousands of Hasina's opponents. More than a dozen people were killed in election-related violence during Sunday's vote.
We have received reports about that there was a what we call vote dacoity. Vote dakati khobor esheche. From now up to this point, almost 100 candidates have withdrawn or have rejected the election.
Kamal Hossain is the face of the Alliance National Unity Front, but it is led by the Bangladesh National Party, or BNP. The BNP boycotted the last polls in 2014. The party's leader, Khaleda Zia, has been in jail since February on corruption charges that she says are politically motivated. Zia is Hasina's arch-rival. The two women have alternated in power in Bangladesh for most of the past 3 decades. Critics accuse the Prime Minister of rampant human rights abuses, a crackdown on the media, and suppressing dissent. Hasina denies those allegations. Peter Koveos, TVB News.
Ballot counting has begun in the Democratic Republic of Congo after Sunday's presidential election. In what's expected to be the country's first democratic transfer of power since it gained independence in 1960, the polls were marred by lengthy delays and accusations of voting irregularities. Alan Buckner reports.
After 17 years in power, President Joseph Kabila will step down after this election. That's seen as a milestone for a country plagued by almost 60 years of authoritarian rule, coups, and civil wars. Kabila himself took power in 2001 after the assassination of his father. This election had been delayed since 2016, prompting the opposition to charge that Kabila was trying to stay past his mandate.
It's clear that the elections are free and fair, and will definitely be fair and fair.
Voting at the same time as Kabila was his preferred successor, Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari, but he's trailing in the polls to two opposition leaders, Martin Fayulu of the Lamuka coalition, who is the front runner, and Felix Tshisekedi of the main opposition UDPS party. But voting was plagued with chaos. Some voting centers opened hours late because they didn't have voters' rolls or battery cables to power voting machines. In one area of Kinshasa, heavy rain caused flooding, forcing people to wade to the polling stations. The Catholic Church's election observer mission said it received 544 reports of malfunctioning voting machines, 115 cases of election observers being kicked out of polling centers, and 44 cases of vote buying or corruption. Voting in the Ebola-affected cities of Benai and Butembo have been delayed until March, long after Congo's new leader will have been inaugurated in January. The cities are seen as an opposition stronghold. Well over 10,000 people in Benai cast paper ballots anyway. Official results are expected to be announced on January 15th, although preliminary returns are expected earlier than that. Alan Burknia, TVB News.
At least 4 people were killed after a section of an apartment building collapsed in the Ural Mountains. It was caused by an apparent gas explosion. Almost 70 residents remain unaccounted for. Authorities believe many of them could be buried under the rubble. 4 people have been rescued and taken to hospital. The blast came in the early morning when most people were probably asleep. There have been several similar incidents in Russia in recent years because of aging infrastructure and poor safety regulations. And still ahead tonight. New Year's Eve celebrations in Hong Kong. The Medical Council to discuss whether there should be age restrictions for practicing doctors. Hello and welcome back. The new year has already been rung in New Zealand. In Auckland, the arrival of 2019 was celebrated with a fireworks display over the city's Sky Tower. And here in Hong Kong, we're just hours away from 2019. No doubt many of you are ready to party and celebrate tonight. So we've sent our reporter, Pinky Wong, to Tsim Sha Tsui to check out the atmosphere there. Pinky, what can you tell us from the waterfront?
Hi, Elmi. You can see the sky behind me is quite clear, so everyone should have a good time enjoying the fireworks show. You can see behind me the crowd gathered by the seaside. They're all here for the countdown and the firework display. Some of those I spoke to earlier said they arrived last night or early this morning just to get a good spot. Revelers gathered outside the cultural center in Tsim Sha Tsui, staking out their spot for tonight's firework. This man arrived at 8 this morning. However, he still isn't too happy with his vantage point, even though it's directly across the harbour from the Convention and Exhibition Centre, where the number 2019 will be projected on the building's exterior at midnight. A 10-minute fireworks show kicks off at midnight.
In Colombia, we celebrate with our families, not really outside with the big fireworks, and we wanted to see how is the fireworks here.
The scale here is quite unprecedented and huge compared to what we do in our country.
Restaurants are hoping for a great turnout tonight. Most tables were reserved about a month ago at this restaurant in Lan Kwai Fong. Eateries in Central are expected to do better than during the Christmas holiday.
We expect about 15 to 20% sales growth because due to the establishment of the two major infrastructure, which brings a lot of visitors from PRC to Hong Kong.
The Central Harbourfront is another popular place where families are enjoying rides on the Ferris wheel one last time this year. It's freezing here by the harbour side, but that hardly stopped people from pouring in. Police have closed some roads nearby, including most of Austin Road. Those who plan to come to Tsim Sha Tsui are advised to use public transportation. That's all from me at Tsim Sha Tsui. Back to you in the studio.
And that was Ping Ki-wong reporting from the waterfront in Tsim Sha Tsui. Well, on to some other news now. Deputy Director of the Audit, John Chu, has been named the head of the Audit Commission. The 58-year-old's appointment as Director of Audit was approved by the Central People's Government. Chu has more than 30 years' experience in the government. He succeeds David Sun, who is retiring after 6.5 years in the job. The Audit Commission regularly checks the administration's transactions and public funds. It also assesses if a government department or public body has effectively implemented policy objectives.
Should doctors cease practicing medicine after a certain age? Well, that's what the Medical Council of Hong Kong will reportedly discuss at a meeting next month. Kena Chu talked to some local practitioners to find out what they think about the issue.
Lai Ching-long is an authority in hepatology. Now 70, his greatest wish is to continue his profession and see patients. With good energy and active body and brain, I don't see what's wrong with older doctors, Lai said. In fact, he thinks patients can benefit from his many years of professional experience. But a recent case sparked a debate on how old is too old. This 86-year-old doctor was arrested over the death of his female patient, believed to have passed away after receiving botulinum toxin injections. Hong Kong has no laws capping the age of practicing doctors. It's the same in England, the United States, Canada, and Ireland. Yet in Australia, the medical board sees increasing age as a known risk factor for poor performance. It proposed that all doctors aged 70 or above in the country take mandatory health checks every 3 years. In Denmark, doctors must retire once they reach the age of 75. David Lam, a member of the Medical Council of Hong Kong, recommends that doctors who are 70 or 80 years old should undergo body checks for license renewal. But even so, he foresees challenges. He questioned if mental health assessments guarantee good hand-eye coordination. And if a doctor has good hand-eye coordination, will that mean that he or she can perform a detailed and lengthy operation? These questions may be put forward at a meeting of the Medical Council of Hong Kong next month. Kena Chu, TVB News.
And that's the news.